Hello, everyone, and welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders Airsoft podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Today, I'm talking with Jordan again. He had so much fun the first time, he wanted to come back for more. So thanks again for joining us, Jordan. So one of the questions we get asked in our comments quite often is some variation of, how do I start an Airsoft team? Or how do I find a team to join? Or, how do I meet new players playing Airsoft that I can squad up with and stuff like that? It's a pretty natural impulse, I think. When you play, we always know it's always better to have other people with you on the field, right? It's better to have more than one gun pointed in the same direction, generally is advantageous. And when you start playing, you really want to have people there with you, just in terms, not just of the effectiveness, but also fun. Like playing with people is more fun. And for many of us, we may go to an airsoft field without knowing anybody. I know that's the case for Jordan, and I know for myself, there was nobody else that I knew when I started playing airsoft. So it's not always clear cut how you go about meeting new airsoft players, and how to join or start a team is even a bit more challenging than that. And how... And as we discussed previously, Jordan is a pretty new player, he started playing back in April, and we thought it'd be a good idea to talk about how he went about teaming up with a group of players, what he was looking for from a team, their overall approach, and how that compares to what, we did with the Storm Riders and what we still do today when we're trying to get new players to join the team and so on. So let's get into it. I think the first place to start, Jordan, you can just start off, I guess, by giving a shout out to your crew. That way they don't have to listen to the rest of the episode for their name to drop. They can just drop off right when you're done.
All right, so the main guys that I play with are on the Apperators, which is probably going to not come across great on audio, but it's a play on the word operator, because everybody in Airsoft's always trying to be super tactical operator squad. So our patch is pretty much just 3 pairs, like the fruit. 3 pairs with big arms and muscles and guns wearing tactical gear with a big cheesy explosion in the background. And we love it. We feel like it encapsulates who we are. What we like to do, we like to have fun, but we also like to be the guys out there that you can depend on to do stuff. So we've kind of adopted that. The guys that I play with all the time are Matt, Will, Kyle, and Jeff. And, those guys are all awesome, and I would go to any field to play with those guys. So shout outs to the Apperators.
That's sweet, and I'll throw up your logo in the podcast on the YouTube so people can see what it looks like, so they can sort of contextualize all the weird stuff you just said.
Oh, that'd be awesome! Can't wait.
So how did you actually meet those guys? Were they already a team at your local field, or what was the deal?
So the way that I met those guys is actually the way that I've met almost all of the good people that I've met through Airsoft, and I kind of just walk up to somebody that I feel like they know what they were doing and started chatting. So Matt was the first one that I met, and it was at Feel Good Farms. I walked up the first time I was ever playing there. It was a super rainy Sunday. There wasn't many people there. I saw another guy that was wearing full multicam, and he always giggles when I say this, but I'm like, yeah, I thought you looked like you knew what you were doing, and I just wanted to go up and chat with you and just say what's up. I had just got a new radio, so I needed somebody to help me set it up. So that was the main goal of going over and chatting with Matt, was be like, hey, what's going on? And do you have a radio? I wanted to know if I could, use your radio frequency today to test it out, see how it works. After that, a couple of his friends showed up. Will being one of them, another guy on the team, and his friend Bert. And Bert hasn't played with us in a long time. His job doesn't really allow him to be at the field often, so he's kind of with us in spirit for the Apperators. He's always there with us, and he has his own patch. He is forever one of us. So I've only met Bert one time. He's awesome. He runs a really big heavy saw, and I thought that was so cool when I first met him. But Matt introduced me to his new friends, and he's like, hey guys, this is Jordan. He's pretty new to Airsoft. So it's one of his, I think it was my 4th time playing or something like that, maybe even my 3rd time. And that was kind of how he introduced me. And I kind of felt like I saw Will give me a look this new guy is going to be playing with us. But that was kind of like my goal. I wanted to be in a group of people that I could learn from. And I was very lucky that I don't have a lot of issues now with being super shy. I can just kind of walk up to anybody and just start chatting. And now I kind of feel like I'm like a social butterfly at the field. I'm talking to everybody. I'm walking up to people I don't know. On the way back to my car, I'm just like saying things to people while I'm passing by, you know, making comments about things. And I feel like it's kind of like a good thing to have at the field when you don't know anybody. Like yesterday, I was playing. Today is Tuesday. No, today's Monday. So yesterday when we were playing, there was a little kid, like three little kids and the dad at the back of their truck. And I was walking by and the kids had their sweatshirts on and like backpacks and stuff like that. And I just kind of walked by. I was like, wow, such a nice day out today. Can't wait to play. And they're all looking at me in like my full gear, like, oh my God, look at this guy. And I wasn't like trying to show off or anything, but I just wanted to say hey to the kids. And the dad was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get out there. And it was one of those dads that is clearly there just to be there for the kids. But he joins in to play with them too, to not leave them out alone on the field. But I just find myself talking to almost everybody. So meeting Matt and meeting Will was purely by me just walking up and starting that conversation. I don't really think that's something that everybody can do. And I guess I'll kind of go into that a bit. I feel like being out on the field, sometimes it's really easy to feel like you're alone if you're not actively trying to talk to people. I mean,
and like you just said, like, it's not easy for everybody. Like, it doesn't necessarily come naturally. Even just the act of going up to a random person being like, hey, my name is Phil, what's your name? Is super strange for a lot of people. Like, think about all the people that you may meet at the airsoft field and not even exchange your names with them. There's lots of people who I know from the field who I've talked to and have conversations with. I don't know who they are. They might know who I am because other people will reference me. It's like, oh yeah, that's Phil or whatever. Or hey, Phil, come over here. Or hey, Phil, here's that mag you dropped or whatever. But I don't necessarily know their name, and I don't necessarily go around introducing myself being like, hey, my name is Phil, what's your name? That just doing that takes a lot of sort of courage for lots of people.
Yeah, and I feel like for a lot of people, you know, if they are shy, it's kind of hard. You know, being out there when you don't know anybody, especially if it's like one of your first times to the field, I always try to make a note of when the marshal is at the beginning of the day, he's going through the safety briefing, he has everybody raise their hand if it's their first time playing at the field or their first time playing airsoft. And he does it so that the people that have been there for a long time can, you know, bring these people out in the field, show them what they need to do. If they see them like in a corner, not knowing where they are, you know, have them tag along with them, you know, bring them somewhere.
That's a great practice. Absolutely great practice.
It's really built the community into what it is there. It's like almost everybody that you talk to there is super, super friendly. And it's like you can't go wrong walking up to somebody. I mean, if you're like being weird about it, then yeah, maybe. But, you know, walking up to somebody, chatting about something, or looking over to the cover next to you and seeing some guy you've never talked to before, and you try to say something like, hey, cover me while we do this, or what do you think we should do? I don't think I've ever been like turned away from those people. Yeah. They've always been like, yeah, totally. Oh, let's do this. Let's try this. Or, you know, we make a move together and it's like you just made a brand new friend. Like out there that you know, you didn't talk to them at all before. And that's actually kind of what happened yesterday. There was these two guys wearing all UCP. I actually know the third one that wears it with them normally. He works at one of the shops that I go to all the time. He just wasn't there yesterday. And these two guys were in UCP. They were kind of chatting with me and stuff because, you know, when I got there, I was like, hey, where's so-and-so? I didn't see him. And they're like, oh yeah, he didn't end up coming today. So like, it kind of like broke the ice a bit, I guess, because they chatted with me before we got out there. But those guys were backing me up the whole time. And I didn't have my normal friends there. My normal friends were at a Milsim this weekend at Autumn Justice, which I heard was fantastic. And they had a great time. So I was kind of out there by myself. And when I was by myself, I didn't feel like I wanted to be the loner on the outskirts doing my own thing. Because one, if I died out there, I didn't have anybody to revive me. And two, I wanted to practice being up close and personal, having to move cover to cover. So I learned a lot yesterday just by working with these two people that I had literally never talked to before. And they were like 100% backing me up out on the field. We were making tactical movements together, providing covering fire. We had a lot of good plays, and that stuff wouldn't have happened if I wasn't vocal about it, and if they weren't vocal to me back. Because after that first game where we just like destroyed, we made a really good move and we put down some good fire. They were like, all right, hey, where do you want to go this time? Like, they came to me after the game and they were asking like, all right, hey, where should we go? Where should we go? Not like, where should I go? What do you think's a good spot? They wanted to play with me. They wanted to go in the area that I was. So it just became a point where it was, I knew that these guys would be backing me up if I needed them to. I was just saying, hey, cover me on this, suppress that building, and I just went. And they were on it. It was like I had teammates, even though I didn't know who they were. It was fantastic.
You had the mantle of leadership thrust upon you.
Take this.
But it's interesting because that's oftentimes that's how it happens, And when I think about how the Storm Riders nowadays will get people to join the team, is we play games with them. We have really good experiences, right? We recognize that people are, competent or whatever you want to say, but most importantly, that they have sort of the attribute that mesh with us, which is to say that they're, friendly people, they're outgoing, they are focused on making sure that their performance is where it needs to be, but that they're also perfectly willing to work with anybody. And so like we had Matt just join the team. Matt is a guy who's also a ref at the field sometimes. He's perfectly capable of working with the renters, the guys who are like 13, 14 years old, just playing their first Airsoft game ever. And for us, that's really important because that's how we build community. And when you see that, when you have those interactions, when you are, to your point, you're pushing a building and you've got this person and they're covering you and they're doing sort of what they're supposed to. They're thinking about the game the same way that you're thinking about it. Although I would say that Matt is his personal skills are way above mine, but that's another conversation. You see that, you're like, hey, I want to do more of that, right? I want, this is an opportunity for us to do more of that. So in your position, you already have a team, but let's say you didn't have a team and you have these other two guys. Maybe after that day, you're like, hey, do you guys want to squad up and roll together? Like, that's a legit thing that can happen.
Yeah, and that's how it actually kind of works. So kind of looping back to the first question, when I met those guys, it wasn't like the first day I met them and they were like, hey, do you want to join our team? It was, I met Matt and Will. I met Bert. I got all of their phone numbers. I just had them in my phone as Matt FGF, because I didn't really know who they were. And we just started saying, oh, hey, guys, it was a great game. Let's, when are you guys going to be up there next time? And, just started chatting with them. We just had a group chat going on. And really, it was just a bunch of guys that, they knew each other. They were friends prior to me. But they were just two guys that I didn't know of before. And we just started socializing. It was the outside Airsoft talk about Airsoft and like, hey, when are you going to be at the field next time? That really started bringing us like together more. Cause then it was like, oh, Will's going to be at the field again. Let's swing by Feel Good Farms and play. And I've been playing with them for so long now that it's kind of weird when I go somewhere and at least one of them is not there. It's like, I can kind of depend on like, oh, hey, if Will's doing something, he's busy this weekend, maybe Matt will be up, If this leads me into my next thing, if I had a friend that's in a different state, speaking of Jeff, one of our other teammates that I met, if I'm going down to that state, maybe Jeff's available to play. He's not always coming up to our field all the time, but there's another field that's a lot closer to him that I met him at that he's totally down to play at. So, I feel like having somebody there with you, even if it's not somebody that you know of, like when you get there, if you make that first friend, or even just make an acquaintance with somebody, it can make like that whole day totally different.
Absolutely. And, I'll add like the Storm Riders here in St. John's often end up playing against each other. We don't always play together. And part of the reason is, if there's 6 of us who show up to a game, and let's say there's 18 players that day, which for us is a pretty decent day, having the 6 of us on one side is not something that the refs are going to want to do all day, nor is that going to be fun for a lot of the players. Either because they feel that it's going to be unfair because we're going to stomp them, which is actually not what happens in reality, people. That's not what happens. You have 6 dudes and they have 12. Those are not necessarily good odds. I don't care who you are, right? I'll take them any single day of the week, but I'll take them because they're a challenge and my expectation is we are going to lose. How are we going to make the best of that situation? That's doing me a favor because making a harder game for me makes me a better player. But that doesn't necessarily mean that people want to do that. And if it's full of renters, then that's not fun for them either. And I'm not there to put my fun above everybody else's. I think we've talked about that, on the podcast before. I want everyone to have a good time. So if they go, hey, so we're going to split you 3 and 3. Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so if it's just me and John and the ref goes, all right, John, you're on one side, Phil, you're on the other side, which has happened a lot. I'll happily shoot John or get shot by John most of the time. But just him being there makes for a fun game.
Oh, exactly.
Because when I go back to the safe zone, we can sort of, we can commiserate, we can talk about, what went right, what went wrong. Most importantly, I think it gives an opportunity to say, hey, so from your perspective, how did I play that? Right, which is a good growth tool, but that's a different sort of conversation. Just having other players there, even if they're not on your team, makes a huge difference, right?
Oh, exactly. And like I said, I think that a large part of Airsoft to me is, I work from home. I'm working. I'm not always talking to my teammates. By teammates, I mean like the people that I work with, my employee friends. I'm not always talking to them, the coworkers, I guess that's the proper term. I'm not chatting with them when I'm just hanging out working. I'm working. So if I'm working from home 5 days a week, a lot of times I'm not getting a lot of outside socialization. We're still not really going out to a lot of places. I'm not going out to eat. I'm not going out with my friends to, the mall and random places like that. It's, I get my socialization through Airsoft. So when I go out to the field and it's like, oh, hey, I saw these guys last week, or I'm talking to the marshal because the marshal's awesome. I'm always chatting with Tanner, or I'm just seeing a friend that I haven't played with in, a couple weeks. It's always feels like it's, you're coming back to something. And I feel like being able to, even if you're nervous about it, being able to just start chatting with people, maybe not like before the game, but you'd be amazed at how many times I haven't talked to anybody during like before the games. And then I say something mid game and we're chatting about like what we should do for the next move. And we come off the field and we're chatting all the way back. You're chatting as you walk off the field because you broke the ice. And it's super easy to break the ice playing Airsoft because we're all just a bunch of people playing dress up out in the woods, shooting each other with fake guns.
Yeah.
Like we're all doing the same thing.
You're stuck behind the same wooden pallet. You look at the other guy, be like, man, this sucks. It's like, yeah, it does suck. Then you both get hit and you walk off. You're like, okay, that sucks.
The best ones are when it's like, you can definitely be revived, but it's kind of an iffy revive. And the person's like, medic, yes. Because that's what we have to say. Medic, yes, or medic, no. And if you say medic, yes, it's the idea is that you're in a safe enough spot to be grabbed. They can come and grab you and revive you. And everybody wants to be playing. So it's like, oh, maybe they can make it to me. Medic, yes. And then you're not sure. And then they're like, okay. And they just start running over to you. And then they immediately die. And then you just have to sit there next to your new friend and be like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I just got you killed. I just got you killed, man. I'm sorry. I feel like Airsoft wouldn't be a lot of fun if everybody took it super serious all the time. You got to be able to have fun out there and just joke around and mess around. Some of the funniest things are when you shoot by a teammate, or like somebody's running and they bump into somebody, or they're like walking in front of you and they trip and somebody makes a comment. Like the funniest things happen when you're out on the field, and I feel like if you ignore them, you're wasting an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think, if you think back to the podcast we did a couple of weeks ago with Pat talking about how people get heated and stuff, like in a lot of situations, like if you didn't take yourself quite so seriously, didn't take the situation quite so seriously, maybe that wouldn't escalated the way that it did. But that's beside the point. I think it's pretty obvious. Like it's no secret meeting people, making friends at Airsoft is fun and it's something people will look to do. But I think there's a difference between meeting players and making friends at Airsoft and then having a team with those people, right?
Oh, absolutely. So just before we get into this, I just want to kind of loop back again, just to introduce how I met, because we're talking about our teammates. So I had actually met Kyle. I met Kyle, who's the newest member of our team, when we were doing my first ever Milsim op. And he was actually playing as one of the opposing factions. And they were playing like the local rebel militia team. And we were chatting with him before. They were all wearing like traditional garb and stuff like that. And him and 9 of the Smash Gannies is what they were called, like came and
came and
they ambushed us at a position way out in the end of the field, and we had to ruck all the way out there. Just us three, me, Matt, and Will, were all the way out at the bastion is what they called it. And we got ambushed by like 9 Smash Gannies who just came out of the woodworks, 6 of which had like LMGs. We were just getting saw suppressed the whole time. And Kyle was one of the Smash Gannies, and I just started seeing him around more and more. And actually for a while he took a break playing Airsoft, and he just recently came back to our camping night. He was actually one of Will's friends, and he came camping with us, and he's like, yeah, you know, I think you guys are awesome. I think that we play very similarly. And Kyle was given his patch like the same day as we met him, because most of us were already familiar with him. Jeff was also there camping. So Jeff was, he joined the team just before Kyle did. And I met Jeff at a different field. I actually went on a very small day. It was a Friday morning game. It was like 9 to 6, I think. It was one of those like, oh, it's the beginning of summer, let's start doing Friday games, because kids were out of school and stuff like that. And I showed up, and it was like 14 people, and Jeff was there, and Jeff showed up a little bit late. He was like the only other guy that was wearing a helmet that like had some like type of cover. He had the same headphones as me. That was the first thing I noticed. So I'm like, okay, this guy, he's got to kind of know what's up, right? And we were playing a game, and there was so little people that we were doing a tower defense game, and there was 2 people in the tower. It was Jeff, and it was some guy with a saw. And we were just getting peppered by the guy with the saw. Jeff was throwing grenades and stuff, but I had actually flanked all the way around to behind where they spawned. And Jeff died, and I shot him as he spawned. And Jeff was like, yo, this is our spawn. What are you doing? And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I was just flanking. I had no idea. And he's, you know, we got a little bit upset during that. And then I just kind of walked away. I took it like a 50-foot back step. And then after the game, Jeff came up to me. He's like, hey, man, you know, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be like upset. I was just like, it was our spawn. He's like, honestly, if I was in your position, I would have done the exact same thing. So I can't be mad at you. And me and Jeff, ever since then, we were just like, all right, let's just start playing. He's the big inspiration behind why I started scrimming my helmet, because I saw him do it. And Jeff is just like all the other guys. He's awesome, and he fits in super well. So shout outs to all the guys again. So.
Well, I think that's a pretty good segue, though, because I think, like I was saying just before that, it's one thing to meet people and make friends at the field, but then having a team, it's a different dynamic. Like, people think, oh, well, you have a team of people, so you're magically going to, like, I think that's the perception. It's like, if you have a team of people, you're magically going to be better. And that's just not the case. Like, yeah, sure, having more people is great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to gel and have the same style and work together and stuff. And so I think, based on what you just said, like, I think you hit a really good point, which is when you're looking for people to be on a team with you, like, they have to share some commonalities, right, with you.
Oh, absolutely.
So what was that like? What was that like with you and the Apperators?
So all the guys, and I think I said this in the last episode that I was on with you, we are all outskirts flank players. You know, we're all the people that like to be, where did I just get shot from? And it's us like 50 feet from an angle that you weren't expecting, because we took like the 15-minute flank route or something like that. So I met them, and I was still shaping the way that I played. So the first game that I ever played with them, I kind of started flanking more. And it wasn't really something that I had done because I didn't have anybody to show me where we were going, type of idea. And as soon as I started doing that with them, I realized, I'm like, this is the play style that I want to do. This is what I want to be good at. And that's kind of just how we started doing our things. We would always be like, okay, where are we going? Are we going to be on the outskirts? Of course we are, because that's where we're going to be. The people on the enemy team always started expecting us to be in some places, which led to some pretty cool engagements. Because instead of walking down by the river where there's nobody, there was like 4 people waiting for us to get like ambushed. That's always some cool stuff. But I think a lot of it comes down to like communication. It was something that we didn't practice. We kind of just started doing, you know, and it started off with me getting my radio. The first day I met Matt and Will, I got into their radio frequency. I was still brand new. Like, literally the first day that I had my radio, I was trying to use it to talk to these guys. And I think communication as a whole is so important, not even just with your teammates, but with everybody on the field. You know, Airsoft is a social game. It's a team game. You can't win that game by yourself. There's no way. You're not winning that game by
Yeah.
yourself. You know, even if you're like, wow, I just killed 8 people and I knocked down the barrel and we won the game. Yeah, you killed 8 people, but who was distracting everybody while you were making those moves? Like, if everybody on the enemy team was looking at you, there's no way you would have made it to the barrel. Like, it was a combination of your teammates that helped you do this, which is why I think talking is so important.
Totally, and I think you're bang on about that. Like, individuals don't win, right? Teams win, right? One side wins, the other side loses, and it doesn't matter if you're the best player on that side. Your side still wins, right? That's why, like, we play like team deathmatch games sometimes, and I'm hit in like the first minute. But then if my side wins, I'm like, yeah, we won, even though I'm dead. I didn't win anything, but
we won.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, so
won.
Yeah, like we won, and that's super, super important. And when it comes to teams as well, I think you're hitting the nail on the head around communication. Like, is that something you can really practice for? Like, you can sit at home doing a million ready ups, but how are you going to practice comms with people? Like, it's not the same thing. It's something you have to be really, really conscious of on the field. And if it's difficult for you to talk to the people on your team for them to understand you, and whatever, if it's as a result of just not like a language barrier, but like it's just you're using terms that you're not on the same page on or stuff like that. Like, if none of that is working, like, it takes a lot more effort. And to be honest, like, communication is something that we still walk off the field every time. It's like, what could have gone better? Communication could have been better. We could have done a better job. Right? Sometimes it's really bad and sometimes it's pretty okay, but it's always one of those things that as a team, like, you need to, the better you are at it, the more effective you're going to be. Right? And this comes back to this idea of, like, just putting yourself in a squad with someone doesn't magically make you better. Like, you need to have that collaborative cooperation and communication, right? To be able to do the things that you want to do on the field as a team. So I'm curious now, like, so you're a brand new player-ish, right? You have a team of people who, they're not brand new, but like as a team, working as a team is kind of brand new for you, if not just them as well. How does that shake out? Like, how do you start working on that as a group?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it comes down to kind of deciding if you guys are going to be a team, or even if it's just not being a team, it's just a group. You know, who wants to be the person that's calling the shots, or do you want to have a person that's calling the shots? Do you want to have it be like a group decision, which is what we've adopted? We don't have a leader to the team. There's nobody that's like above. We are all the same thing. And actually, we joked about it at the milsim that we went to. Whenever they were asked, somebody came up and asked us who squad lead was, because we were part of like a recon team. Anybody that they asked would just say, "I'm the squad lead." Because that was what it was. There was no true squad lead. We were all totally equal. So a lot of times when we're out there, I'll be like, "Hey guys, what do you think about this?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, well, what if we tried this instead?" And it's never like "Oh, that idea sucks, let's do this." It's always, "Well, let's give it a shot. Let's see what we can do this time."
Totally.
It's never like, "All right, Matt is going to be the end all be all. If I run this idea by and Matt doesn't like it, we're not doing it because Matt said so." And I feel like, at least for our team, I can't speak for all teams, but for our team or any group, it really comes down to, if you want to be told what to do, hey, that's totally fine. If that's what you enjoy doing, if you like being somebody that follows along with what other people are doing, by all means, go right ahead. But if you are totally cool with taking lead and the people around you are cool with it, go ahead. But there's been times, and I know that I've heard you guys talk about it before, where there's people on the field that are like yelling and screaming and bossing people around and telling people that they've never even talked to what to do. And that just doesn't fly. That never flies.
Yeah,
in the heat of battle,
100% agree.
In the heat of battle, maybe like, I need some cover fire, or like somebody needs to come up and support me here. But you should never expect somebody to come and do something that you're like demanding. It's totally up to them. And I've seen people get like super upset at other people that are on the team, or not the team, but like just the skirmish team. People get super upset because they're like, "Well, nobody was watching our back, and I told them to watch our back, and like, if they would have just listened to me, we would have won." It's like, dude, we probably would have still lost. And honestly, people don't want to listen to you when you're talking like that. So
yeah, totally.
If you have a group of people that want to get yelled at, I guess, if they're cool with it. But a lot of it is just being friendly.
Yeah, I've seen and heard of teams that have like a rank structure or whatever, and I'm like, I get enough of that like at my job. Like I have a boss, and my boss tells me what to do, and I do that thing. Although she's great, don't get me wrong. My boss is phenomenal, but that's beside the point. She is still above me in the food chain, and what she tells me to do, I have to execute on. Similarly, I'm sure in the military, you have a boss, you have your captain or your major, colonel, whatever, or your sergeant, or I'm not versed, Cal will hate me later, but point is, you have someone above you who tells you what to do and sets the expectation. When you play Airsoft, that doesn't have to exist. And yeah, maybe you want that for your immersion, or maybe you're playing a milsim that does have a more structured chain of command where you have a CO and an XO like Sam was telling us about. And like, that's all fine. But for your team of guys who, or people, I should say, your team of people who you ostensibly want to be friendly with and have a good time with and be able to, sit around and go for a drink or burger, hang out, have a good time, help you move, whatever it is. Why would you want a rank structure around that? Why would you want to have quote unquote authority over someone? To me, that's just complete nonsense, right? And for us on the Storm Riders, just to sort of clarify that, like, yes, my number is number 1, and that has no particular reason, right? When Pat, Cal, and I started the team, I picked 1, Pat picked 2, and I think it's because his name starts with a W and my last name starts with an E, and that was sort of it. And then Cal was the youngest one, so it's like you're number 3, whatever. And everyone else who's joined has just gotten the sequential number. But Matt's opinion, who just joined, his opinion is just as important as mine. Like when we talk about stuff, like when we're thinking about like content we want to make, or we want to host an event, or we want to do a training day or whatever, everybody's opinion is just as important as mine and Chris's and whoever. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to listen to everybody's idea, because sometimes people have bad ideas, and I am not immune to that. I have terrible ideas all the time.
We all do.
And even on the Airsoft field especially, the people will look at me and go, hey, Phil, what do you think we should do? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think we should do? It's like, well, maybe we do this. I'm like, sounds great. Let's do it.
That happened to me yesterday.
Who cares?
Yeah,
right? Yeah. And like some days, I don't want to be the one coming up with the ideas. And I mean, Pat and Cal will tell you, there have been lots of games where I've showed up and I was like, I don't want to think today. My brain has the dumb. I can't think. Just you tell me where you want me to go and I will do the thing. Right? And said the same thing to John. Like, the less I think, the better. Perfect. All right, let's go. Let's do it. If you have a rank structure that requires you as the senior person to make those decisions all the time, like that might not be a whole lot of fun either, right? It's like mandatory fun. It's like, nah, maybe not.
It becomes a responsibility at that point.
Totally, 100%.
Instead of just being like, oh, hey guys, let's go out and game. It's more like, all right, Jordan, Phil, what are we doing this time? And then you have to. You are the person that had to answer. And then if you're like, no, I don't really care, then they're like, okay. And I feel like you can avoid that completely just by being more laid back about it. And, like you were mentioning, like Sam was saying, in milsims, sometimes that is literally not an option. You have to follow the command structure in a lot of milsims, or it's like you're getting put on crap duty for the rest of the night. You're just pulling security the whole time, and that's never fun.
Yeah. And I think too, like, if you're trying to join a team or make a team so that you have people to boss around, I think you're probably looking at it the wrong way too. Just as a bit of a side note, like, yeah, you can get that from a milsim if you are in command of a squad or a platoon or a company or whatever. That's certainly one thing. But in your day-to-day airsoft skirmishes, like if you want to have a group of people who you can boss around, you're not approaching the problem in the right way, I would say.
No, absolutely. And I work with people, or not work with people. I have teammates that are people that are, higher ups at work. They do the bossing around at work. And we come to the field and it's like, hey, what do you want to do? And he's like, man, I do this all week. I don't really want to tell you what to do. Like, that's my job. I don't come here to do my job. Let's just play. And that's totally fine. It's nice when you can kind of just show up and just be like, oh, hey guys, what do you think is a good idea this round? And then a couple of people chime in and we're like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then you just roll with it. And if it sucks, it sucks. It's whatever. It's Airsoft. You die, you go back to spawn, you talk about what happened, and you do it again.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a side note too. Like, Airsoft can be a great exercise in leadership, because people think that leadership is bossing people around, and it really is not, right? It's really about having an idea of where you want to go, coming up with options and selecting the best options. And guess what? Many of the times, the best option is not the one that the boss came up with. The people who do the work, the people who are more experienced, they generally have the better ideas. So then you as a leader, it's like, that sounds like a great idea. Just do that thing. What do you need from me? Right? You can do that at work. I've led teams at work, and that's how I led. And I've had led teams on the airsoft field, and that's also how. It's not lazy. It's also understanding who has the right skill set. And as a consequence of having a team, I will also say, and I think I'm sure you've experienced this, different people on that team will have different skill sets. You will know, or get to know, I should say, what certain people are good at. If I need people to sneak around an objective, I'm not going to ask Pat. Pat is not the sneaky dude. He will admit it himself. Right?
I'll admit it too. The guys will not ask me to be sneaky around something. They call me Thunder Feet when I'm in the woods because I'm stepping on like every single branch there is.
Yeah, and like you get to learn that. You know, like Chris, not particularly a sneaky dude. Cal, he's pretty friggin' sneaky. Same thing with Shane, like really quiet dudes. That's great. So once you start understanding the dynamic of the people who you're playing with, you know, your team, your play group, whatever, you can then make even better decisions on the field because you know who can hold that corner with a saw better than Pat can. I'm going to say pretty much nobody, right? So in this particular fictional example I'm cooking up in my head, I'm going to get him to do that, or I'm going to ask him to do that, I should say, because I'm not going to get him to do anything, but I'm going to be like, hey, Pat, you want to do that? And by virtue of the team relationship that we've built, he's going to do that thing. He's not going to even question it. He's like, oh yeah, sounds good. Let's go. Right? Or if he can't, he'll tell me, I can't do that because, right? I'm LOA, or, you know, I'm at my limit of advance, which is what, if we can't any further, we just say I'm LOA. So he's like, I'm LOA. It's like, okay, no problem. Let's figure something else out to do. That's that team dynamic, right? You don't really get that unless you're playing with people all the time.
I also think that kind of leads us into a good point. For certain teams, people will like take on like the full role of like, oh, that's our squad gunner. That's our guy with the automatic weapon. Or, hey, that's our DMR, or that's our sniper team. Like people will go to that length where, you know, and if that's how their team works, that's totally fine, you know, but I know if I show up to the field and I have a new gun that I want to use, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I'm the squad, you know, I'm the squad CQB player. I can't run the DMR. That's my teammates are relying on me. Like, that sounds so lame to be doing that.
You're limiting yourself too, right?
Exactly.
Totally.
Like Will, and I make fun of Will all the time. Not even make fun of him. I'm jealous of Will. He has a lot of cool toys. He's got a lot of cool guns, and it's like he's got something new and shiny for me to play with every single time he brings something out in the field. But he's got a ton of no, he's got a ton of different guns. He's got you know, this awesome HPA Titman. That's, you know, it was what's it called? It was a gas blowback Titman at one point, so now it's HPA tapped and it's got a ton of recoil, but it's also like a super strong DMR shooting at like 2.5 joules like on the field. So like he'll run that thing, or he has like the Crytek P90 he just got. That thing is awesome. It shoots like a laser. He's got all these cool toys, and if I was like, no, Will, we need a DMR today, dude. I'm sorry, you can't run that P90. Like that would be so lame. Like we're all out here to have fun, you know. If it wants to be a full squad of DMRs, screw it. You know, we'll all stay 100 feet away from the people. I don't really care as long as we're doing what we want to do out on the field. You know, I feel like that's all that really matters. Totally.
And like same thing for like uniform requirements and all this kind of stuff. Again, for a milsim, like whatever, that's not what you're talking about. When we started the Storm Riders, very stupidly, I will point out, it's like multicam is our uniform. Bad choice because multicam sucks in Newfoundland, but that's different conversation. But, you know, anyone who joined the team, you're like, you got to wear multicam. So everyone had multicam. And we're like, you know, the team gun is an M4 or an M4 platform, right? Because we want to be able to swap mags, AKA Phil shoots a lot and he wants to be able to use your mags at any given time.
Come on, give me your mags. Give me your mags.
Mario once threw a mag, I'm sure like clear 30 feet, and I caught it and put it in my gun. Like best mag catch I ever had. Anyways, point is, like that's how we rolled initially. And over time, especially like when a few different people joined the team, like Stefan, for example. I love Stefan. We have a really, really good relationship. He's the first guy who I met who was like, yeah, I'll play, but I want to do different stuff. Like I want to use, he had a rubber knife and I hated him for it for so long. But like, he was like, I want to carry it. Like that's my style. It's what I want to do. He doesn't run sights on his gun. That's his style. And then after a while, I came to realize, I was like, why are we pigeonholing people? Like, you don't want to wear multicam, or now we're wearing Woodland. It's like, well, I would like you to have Woodland, and I would like you to have an M4 gun for if we ever play a quote unquote important game where we are all together as a team, because that does help our effectiveness. And when we show up to the field, it makes us seem like a team, which is what we want to do, right?
Absolutely.
But if I'm like, oh yeah, you can't join the team if you don't have an M4, and you can't join the team if you don't wear Woodland. Well, I don't know if Matt has an M4, and he definitely doesn't have any Woodland, and that's okay, because I don't care what gear he has. What I want is, I want a player who I can hang out with, have a good time with, who has the same motivation and drives that I do, or, you know, within that sort of same wheelhouse. Same thing with Josh. I mean, Josh is a new player. He's got a couple M4s. Dude does not have Woodland. Don't care. I really don't. And if I were to start pushing that, I mean, what do you think the response would be, right? If I turned around to those guys, be like, all right, it's been a while now. You need to get Woodland. You need an M4. Get on that.
Yeah, come on, guys.
That's not really it's not a good vibe, right? I'm not going for that. Like, that's not fun. If you want to do that, don't get me wrong. But, like, why should I force anybody, or why should anybody feel forced to do it, right?
No, and, you know, when I was actually watching some of the earlier Storm Riders videos, I remember seeing all of you guys wearing multicam, and I think you had an older video talking about, like, starting a new team and stuff like that. And I don't remember how long ago this was, but I thought you had mentioned something about, like, oh, well, you know, when you guys are all wearing the same uniform, it makes you look more put together. Like, and which definitely makes sense. You see a bunch of guys running up to the field all wearing the same thing. It's like, whoa. You know, those guys, I don't want to run into them out in the woods, or conversely, maybe I do really want to run into them out in the woods, because it'll be a fun fight. But, you know, I always mess around with my guys, because I say that half the fun for me of Airsoft is playing dress up. It's putting on different clothes and going out and wearing whatever. And Will is always saying to me, like, man, why are you wearing, like, arid pants in the Northeast? And I'm like, dude, because I love these pants and I think they look awesome. And I look like dead leaves with these things on. Like, yeah, I don't look like the tree, but, you know, I feel like I'm effective. I like the way I look. And if I like the way I look and what I'm doing out in the field, then, you know, that's all that matters. So we always give each other crap about, like, new camo and stuff. And Matt saw us all wearing Ranger Green the other day, and he's like, man, seeing you guys all wearing Ranger Green makes me really want to get, like, a solid green uniform. It's like, hey, man, do it. I'm not gonna, like, we're not gonna be like, you gotta do it. Like, our team uniform right now is Woodland tops with, right now, it's multicam arid pants. That's like the skirmish look that we wanted to do if we wanted to play dress up and all match each other. But I'm the only one on the team with multicam arid pants so far. It's just me. The other guys have said, oh yeah, I'm gonna be getting them soon, but I'm not like, come on guys, you gotta get them. Like, I love the way I look. I play dress up every single time I go out and play. You know, I wore a desert top last weekend. And I'm in the Northeast. It actually was pretty effective because a lot of it's like bark mulch and stuff on the ground. But, like, half the fun for me is just doing whatever you want. So if I was out there and it's like, oh, hey, new team. And that's actually one of the first teams I came into contact with, were like, yeah, so multicam and Marpad are our patterns. That's what we wear. And I'm like, well, I have both of those, so that's cool. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, what if I want to wear anything else? Yeah. And it's a day that you guys decided to wear Marpad, and I really don't want to wear Marpad. Are you guys going to, like, give me crap for it? Like, that's just what I was saying in my head. And it kind of set this thing in my head, like, unless it's a milsim where you have to wear a specified uniform and you guys all have the same uniform, or you're willing to get it, who cares, man? Like, it really doesn't matter what you're wearing out in the field as long as you're having fun. So,
yeah, and I think a lot of new players need to hear that more. Like, this is something we do for fun. Like, you shouldn't let other people tell you how to have that fun. Now, again, if you're trying to have a team and you want to have that, because I do sincerely believe what I said back in however long that was when we talked about teams, like, there is an intimidation factor. Absolutely. You see a bunch of guys dressed the same showing up at the field. Immediately you're thinking, oh my God, like, these guys know what they're talking about. Or if they're on your side, same patches, everything, right? Like, you're like, whoa, okay, these guys are serious. And if they're on your team, that's a confidence booster, because now you know, if I'm rolling with those guys, I'm rolling with the big guns. Even if it's not true, it doesn't matter, right? That's their first thought. It's confidence booster. Or on the other side, you have people who have their confidence shaken, potentially, depending, because they're like, oh my God, these guys are coming after us. This is going to be bad, right? But all this to say that just because you are joining a team doesn't mean you have to look at that. And if the team is saying, oh, well, we have to do this, well, maybe you don't, right? Firstly, you don't have to.
You definitely don't.
You definitely don't, right?
You don't have to join that team.
Yeah. And if they want you bad enough, because maybe you're the best player they've ever seen, you're the Wayne Gretzky of Airsoft, and they're like, we have to have you. Okay. Well then, yeah, but you have to accept the fact that I might not want to wear your same camo all the time. Right? Look at John. John has an M4, but the man has more camo patterns than like me and Cal put together. And he's got his M4, but he's also got his Tommy gun and his Sten, and he's got his, FNFAL. Now he's got an AK with a dong grip on it and all this kind of stuff. And he's liable to use any of those at any given times. What do I care? Right? It would be nice to be able to swap mags with him, but don't have to. We had training the other day for the video that we're going to put out. And I said to the guys, I'm like, hey guys, just make sure you're wearing your Woodland because we are recording. But John was like, I'm using my AK because I want to train with it. And I was like, okay, cool. Do it. Who cares? Right? Like, what goodwill are you buying by being like, no, you can't do that. Right?
Yeah,
you can't
exactly.
have fun the way you want to.
And I will say that like a certain aspect of it, when it comes to guns, using compatible guns and compatible mags, a certain aspect of that comes down to, yes, that is super useful when you're playing in a milsim, something that you have limited ammo, and it matters if you have 6 mags and you've been in the crap for 30 minutes and just taking fire from all angles and you're running low on ammo. It'd be nice to be like, hey Matt, can I borrow an M4 mag? And you can use it. But I don't think about it in a skirmish like, all right, guys, let's all run our M4s unless we're trying to, play dress up the same way that day. Like, I don't care. I'm not asking my buddies for, all right, guys, like, I need you to have 2 mags on your back at all times so that I can grab them if I need to reload. Like, it's those types of things that, and I've heard people talking about it on the field when they show up, they're like, okay, well, we only wear multicam black. That's all we wear. Or, we only wear multicam. If you're going to join us, we're always wearing multicam. Everybody wears multicam, man. First of all, pick something else. Like pick something different because everybody wears multicam now. But like those requirements, I feel like turn a lot of people off, and it makes them feel like I need to have X amount of gear to be good, or for people to think that I'm good. And I'm a true example of that. I came in with all of my stuff without ever playing a game, and I mean, I like to think I was amazing, but I'm sure I was crap. I know I was crap when I first started playing. So like these kids,
you still are. Don't even worry about it.
Oh yeah. I'll always be mediocre. But some of these kids will show up and they're super intimidated by me because I have all this camo on. I have this big bush on my head, and they're like, "Oh my god, look at this guy!" And I could see them look at me when we're like in the middle of a fight sometimes, being like, "Oh my god!" But I'm just like you, man. I'm just out there to play the game, to shoot and get shot. And to have a laugh about it. So I don't care if you're rental number 4 wearing a sweatshirt and jeans, or if you're fully geared up milsim guy rocking the full multicam Gucci gear. Like, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Airsoft is a game. We're all just out there to have fun.
Totally. And that the same exact concept applies to a team, right? You see guys rolling on the field, and like if they're having a good time and they seem like they're having fun in the way that you want to have fun, well then you should be talking to them and being like, hey, so what do you do? And we've had lots of people come to us be like, hey, are you guys like taking new members? And we're like, well, not especially right now, like because you don't have fun the way that we want to have fun, right? What we think is interesting is not what you think is interesting based on the way that we've played on the field. And that's the reality. It has to, you can't force it, right? And we've had people, not very many people, but we have people leave the team, and that's okay too, right? If you're in a position where you're currently on a team and you're thinking, well, how do I need to do this? Like, what do I do? It's like, well, if it's not working for you, you should be able to be like, you know what, guys, this is really not working for me. And you should feel okay moving away. And I know it's hard to do. Like, as they say, breaking up is hard to do. But like, at the end of the day, you're supposed to be having fun. And if it's not working for you, then, you got to find another way to have your fun, right?
And you make a really good point that I think is another thing that you mentioned in an older video. When you're trying to make a team, you got to play with those people before you just decide, like, yeah, you may have had a great day with all these guys, but if you don't know who they are, you haven't actually chatted with them outside of it. My teammates are not my teammates because I think they're the greatest players ever and we're going to win every game we play. My teammates are my teammates because they're all guys that I can just hang out with, shoot it every single day, just hanging out for 12 hours before a game. It doesn't matter what we're doing. I will enjoy my time when I'm with those guys. So if you just are taking every good player, everybody that you think is good on the field, like you don't even know their what's it called? Their attitudes. You don't know if their personalities will mesh with your team. If they want the same thing out of the game that you do. Maybe they're super serious about wanting to win at all costs no matter what. Maybe they're a cheater. Maybe there's somebody that doesn't call their hits, or they overshoot, or they get super mad out on the field and they start yelling and screaming and throwing stuff. And you don't know this until you've, unless you're going off of good faith from what your friend said, you don't know until you've played with this person. It's something that they say when you go to move in with somebody, right? If you don't really know that person until you're living with them, because
totally
you see everything when you're living with that person. So it's like the same thing with a teammate. You don't really know them until you're there all the time.
Yeah, and it's compounded too, because when you have a team, and I remember saying this in the video, their reputation becomes your reputation. So Absolutely. If you have someone on your team who's cheating all the time, then guess what? You have a team of cheaters.
You are the cheaters. Your whole team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys cheat.
Exactly. Or if you're flipping out, if someone on your team flips out against someone, that's your whole team. You guys are assholes now. Right? And so you really, like, I often think about it. It's like, hey, so would I invite this person into my home? Would I invite this individual into my home to hang out and have a beer or a drink or whatever? And if I barely know them, then no. Well, then why would I have them on my team? Like we haven't had it in a while, but we'd have like Christmas dinners for the team, right? Where, the most of us would get like dressed up and we'd bring our spouses, our girlfriends or wives or, boyfriends, whatever. And that would be fine. Like we would hang out, we'd play Cards Against Humanity, we'd, have a few drinks, have some food, etc. And we would have a great time. If you can't do that, if you don't feel comfortable doing that with your teammates, that, for my money, is not really a road you should go down, right? You should feel comfortable enough with these people. And if you've never played with them, if you only know them by their reputation on the field, but you've never had a conversation with them about just random stuff, maybe you need to spend a bit more time understanding that individual before you're like, hey, let's squad up or let's become a team, right? Let's do that. Because again, would you stake your reputation on this other person?
Well,
right?
Absolutely. And it comes down to like, are they your teammates if they're not your friends? Like, they have to be your friends. I couldn't be out there with a bunch of people who I was just like, oh yeah, they're super great, I'm going to put them on my team, because I wouldn't be able to talk with them every single day. Shooting messages back and forth in the group chat. I annoy my friends while they're at work all the time because I have the privilege of working from home. So I'm always, sending text messages and doing whatever. And I couldn't just do that with anybody from the field. It's not something that I do. So it's like, do you want those people that couldn't be your friends, that you wouldn't feel comfortable with, like you said, inviting them into your home, being around you? Do you really want them to become a permanent like fixture of like, hey, these are that guy is part of that team, so all those guys are now cheaters, or all those guys are now people that get super mad? Teams get banned. Full teams will get banned from fields because of the actions of one person. So,
totally, absolutely.
Like you said, when you put that person on your team, they are now, that is your image that you're putting out there. So you better like those guys. You better like them a lot before you.
You got to trust them.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Well, listen, Jordan, this was a really great conversation. I think people have to, I think there's a lot to think about, before you're joining up teams and stuff. But on the flip side, I think as well, and I think this is your story, when you know, right? You meet people who really jive, then, and if you're that fortunate, you should jump on that opportunity, right? And I think the story of you and the Apperators is definitely a pretty good one, I would say.
Well, thank you, Phil. I appreciate it, man. And, I a lot of it I took from when you were talking with all your guys, all the Storm Riders, saying how you guys are just friends. And I think we had a chat a while back saying, yeah, I've known them for years. It's just people that I can chat with. You talk to them about everything. And that's kind of what these guys are. It's just a bunch of people, and it's not just Airsoft. We do talk about mostly Airsoft, but we give each other crap. We're making fun of each other. We show up at the field, and I make fun of my friends for showing up early all the time or forgetting stuff. Like, we're friends. That's what it comes down to. We're just a bunch of friends hanging out and having a good time. So thank you so much for having me on again, Phil. I really appreciate it, and it was a great chat, man.
It's always a pleasure, man. Guys, thanks you so much for listening. Remember, if you want to be part of the conversation, the link to join the Discord is in the description. But until we see you there, that's all we got for you this week. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.